Imagine a ruler who declared war not on a neighboring state, but on the god of the seas himself, forcing elite legions to fight the waves and collect seashells as war trophies. A man who turned the sacred Imperial Palace into a forced brothel, where noble matrons and the wives of senators were obliged to sell themselves to fill the treasury. You will learn about a madman who seriously prepared his favorite stallion for the position of consul, forcing the entire Roman elite to bow to an animal in a marble manger. We will tell you about feasts where exquisite dishes were served to the sounds of real executions, and the guests continued to eat, smiling out of sheer animal terror. But how far can tyranny go before even the most loyal Praetorians lose their patience? In this video, the most blood-curdling deeds of Emperor Caligula await you. From violating biological taboos that were whispered about only in the grimiest taverns, to a bloody finale that was not just a murder, but an act of savage retribution. Watch until the end, because the resolution of this story and the fate of the tyrant's family will shock even those who think they know everything about cruelty. Silence. A dead, ringing silence in the most luxurious bedroom in the world, broken only by the heavy, raspy breathing of an old man. Smell the air. It is a mixture of medicine, old man sweat, and the fear that has soaked these walls over decades of terror. March 16th, year 37. The Isle of Capri, Villa Jovis. Lying on silk pillows is a man whose name made legions tremble and senators wet themselves. Tiberius, Emperor of Rome. But look closer. Now it is just a dying body clinging to life with bony fingers, and standing next to the bed is a young man. He is 24. He is pale, handsome with that depraved, nervous beauty found in degenerating aristocrats. His eyes are dry. There is no grief in them. In them is the cold calculation of a predator who has sat in a cage too long and now smells an open door. Rome froze in anticipation. The empire is like a taut string. Will it snap or play a new melody? No one knows. But in this room, the fate of the world is being decided. The old man on the bed suddenly stops breathing. The doctors exchange glances. The Praetorian prefect Macro, a man with a butcher's face and a king's ambitions, is already removing the heavy signet ring from the emperor's finger, the symbol of power. He hands it to the young man. Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus. Remember that name. Although history will remember him by a silly, childish nickname that he hated with all his soul. But suddenly, a wheeze. The old man opens his eyes. Tiberius is alive. He asks for food. Imagine the horror that gripped those present. Cold sweat breaks out on their foreheads. If he gets up, if he sees that they have already buried him, by morning they will all be feeding the fish off the rocks of Capri. The senators scatter in panic, pretending they were praying for his recovery. Only the young man stands motionless. He looks at Macro. One look, no words. An order understood by anyone who wants to live under the new power. Macro takes a heavy pillow. One movement. No daggers needed, no poison. Just a little down and fabric pressed against the face of the master of the world. A few minutes of convulsions, and silence again. Now, final. This is how the story begins. Not with fanfares, but with a pillow pressed against the face of a helpless old man. Murder as the first act of a reign. Do you think this is a spoiler? No. This is a diagnosis. Messengers fly to Rome, driving their horses to exhaustion. The news spreads faster than the wind. The tyrant is dead! Long live the son of Germanicus! Do you know what mass hysteria is? Multiply the jubilation of fans in a stadium by 1,000,000. Rome is not just rejoicing. Rome is going crazy with happiness. People pour into the streets, hug strangers, cry, kiss the ground. They believe a golden age has returned. After all, the new emperor is the son of their beloved general, the hero Germanicus. They remember him as a child, a little boy running around the military camp in tiny soldier's boots made to order. Caligula, Little Boot. The soldiers gave him this nickname, touched by the legion's little mascot. How bitterly they would come to regret that affection. But right now, no one sees a monster. Everyone sees a savior. And Gaius plays this role flawlessly. He is a brilliant actor. Life at Tiberius's court was a survival school where any superfluous gesture, any sincere emotion could become a death sentence. He learned to wear a mask of submission, hiding an abyss of hatred beneath it. He saw his brothers killed. He saw his mother exiled and starved to death. And he smiled at the murderers of his family. Every day, for years. Psychiatrists today would tell you this is the perfect recipe for creating a psychopath. Take a child, give him trauma, deprive him of safety, force him to be a hypocrite to survive, and then give him absolute, boundless power. Power facing no obstacles. Power that does not hear the word no. The first months of his reign are like a fairy tale. He opens the prisons. He recalls the exiles. He burns the archives of denunciations, declaring he has nothing to fear because his conscience is clear. He pays generous rewards to the people and the army. The treasury, which the miserly Tiberius had hoarded for decades, is thrown wide open. Gold flows like a river. 3 months of continuous celebration. 160,000 animals are sacrificed to the gods in gratitude for the new emperor. Smoke from the altars hangs over Rome like a thick fog, hiding the sun. The smell of roasted meat and incense soaks the clothes of every citizen. It seems even the gods have descended from Olympus to welcome the young Caesar. But in this idol, there is one nuance. Have you ever seen a shark's eyes? Black, unblinking, empty. That is the look that sometimes slipped out from Gaius when he looked at the cheering crowd. He knew the price of their love. He knew that these same people, who are now throwing flowers under his horse's hooves, yesterday praised Tiberius, who killed his family. He despised them, every single one of them, for their short memory, for their slavish submission. And then comes October of the year 37. The emperor falls. Illness strikes him suddenly, like a blow from a club. Rome is terrified. The city plunges into mourning even deeper than for the death of Tiberius. People sleep by the palace walls, catching every rumor about the princeps' health. Some, in a fit of fanaticism, publicly swear to give their own lives in exchange for the emperor's life. They write signs. "I will die, so Gaius may live." Fools. They do not know that Caligula is a pedant. He will remember these promises, and when he recovers, he will come to them and say, "The gods accepted your deal. Pay up." What was it? Encephalitis? Meningitis? Or maybe poison slipped in by a cautious servant? We will never know for sure, but we know the consequences. The disease burned something out in his brain, or, conversely, it broke the last barriers holding back the darkness. He wakes up a different man. Outwardly, he is the same person, the same hands, the same profile, the same thin lips. But his walk has changed. His gaze has become wandering, heavy. He looks at people not as subjects, and not even as slaves. He looks at them as things. Like a child looks at ants while holding a burning magnifying glass in his hand. Insomnia torments him. At night, he wanders through the huge, echoing halls of the palace, screaming and begging the sun to rise faster. He has nightmares. It seems to him that the ocean is speaking to him, that nature itself bows to his will. He begins to feel cramped in his human shell. Why be an emperor if an emperor is just the first among mortals? Mortals die. Mortals get sick. Mortals depend on the will of the gods. Gaius looks into a mirror of polished silver and does not see Gaius. He sees someone greater, someone who does not obey rules. A thought matures in his head, terrible in its simplicity and grandeur. If Rome is the whole world, and he is the master of Rome, then who is he? Can a human possess such power? No. That means he is no longer human. The illness retreated, but it took the mask of the good emperor with it. The beast has awakened. He is hungry. And he discovers the cage is open, and the trainers have put the whip in his paws themselves. The first alarm bells ring quietly. Strange jokes at dinner. Sudden flashes of rage that make blood run cold. Orders that must be carried out with a forced smile, hiding the trembling in one's hands. Rome continues to celebrate out of inertia, finishing the leftovers from the sacrificial tables, but the air already smells of a thunderstorm. Electricity is building up. The atmosphere changes imperceptibly, like the weather before a storm. Yesterday's friends suddenly disappear. Today you are drinking wine with the emperor, and tomorrow your name is crossed off the list of the living. But the scariest things are not happening in the dungeons. The scariest things are happening in the head of the one sitting on the throne. He begins to peer into the statues of gods standing in the temples, and in their marble, flawless faces, he suddenly recognizes his own features. He approaches the statue of Jupiter, the supreme deity, father of gods and men. Any other mortal would fall prostrate, but Gaius stands straight. He looks the god in the eye, and he whispers words that should have made the heavens collapse. But the heavens are silent, giving tacit consent to the madness that is about to flood the world. "Strike me, or I will strike you!" This scream echoes under the vaults of the Capitoline Temple, causing pigeons to fly up to the dome in panic. Priests freeze with sacrificial knives in their hands. Senators pull their heads into their shoulders, trying to merge with the columns. But this is not a barbarian shouting who has burst into the sanctuary. This is the Emperor of Rome shouting. He stands before a giant statue of Jupiter, the father of gods, and threatens him with his fist. Picture this scene. A puny young man in sandals challenges a stone colossus to a duel. And do you know what the scariest part is? In the eyes of the crowd, the young man wins, because the stone is silent. And behind the young man stand Praetorians with drawn swords. From this moment, Rome turns into a theater of one mad actor, where the genre shifts from political drama to surreal horror. Gaius Julius Caesar is tired of being just a princeps. He is cramped within the framework of human nature. Why obey laws if they are written by people? If you become a god, laws cease to exist. Morality becomes dust under your feet. This is not just megalomania. It is the brilliant move of an evil child who decided to rewrite the rules of the game in the middle of the match. Mourning at the palace now begins not with reports from prefects, but with a costume show. The emperor's wardrobe is bursting with outfits that any courtesan of the Subura would envy. Today he comes out to his subjects in transparent silks, with a gold scepter and platform sandals. He is Venus. Imagine the faces of old warriors, legates who have marched through German forests, when their commander-in-chief comes out to them with painted lips and false breasts. What will you do? Laugh? One chuckle and your head will roll across the mosaic floor. No, you will stand with stone faces. You will admire the divine beauty of Venus. You will break yourself, destroying the remnants of your own dignity, because the instinct of self-preservation is stronger than honor. The next day, he is Apollo, in a radiant crown, demanding choirs and hymns. Then, Jupiter himself, with a false golden beard tied to his hairless chin. The grotesque becomes the norm. Reality blurs. You look at this dressed-up scarecrow, but your brain refuses to believe your eyes. It is collective hypnosis maintained by fear. Gaius enjoys this dissonance. He sees not reverence in your eyes, but horror, and this horror intoxicates him more than Falernian wine. But simply wearing the costumes of gods is not enough for him. He needs worship. The Roman elite had prided themselves on their freedom for centuries. A Roman does not bow. A Roman greets while standing. Slavery and Eastern sycophancy were despised here. Caligula decides to break this backbone. He introduces proskynesis, the barbaric ritual of falling prostrate and kissing feet. Look at the floor of the throne room. Feel the cold marble with your knees. That old man over there in the toga with the purple border is a descendant of the ancient Scipio family. His ancestors defeated Carthage. And now, groaning from arthritis, he gets down on all fours. He crawls to the gilded chair where a 25-year-old sadist is lounging. The old man grabs the emperor's sandal, often dirty, deliberately uncleaned, and presses his lips to it. Silence hangs in the hall, broken only by the heavy breathing of humiliated men and the creaking of joints. In this moment, the Republic dies. Not on the battlefields, but here, in the dust at the feet of a madman. Caligula watches this with a lazy smile. For him, this is an experiment. How low can a person be bent before they break? Turns out, infinitely low. To cement his new status, Gaius builds himself a temple, right on the Palatine. And it is not just a building. It is a commercial enterprise of absurdity. In the center stands a golden statue of the emperor, which is dressed every day in the same clothes Gaius is wearing. The priests in this temple are not ascetics, but the richest people in Rome. The position of priest is for sale. The price is 8 million sesterces. That is a fortune. That is the price of several villas, hundreds of slaves, and a comfortable old age. Patricians line up to give their money. Why? Because refusing to become a priest of your god-emperor is treason. It is a brilliant racketeering scheme. He sells them air, sells them the right to humiliation for their own money. Among the priests are his favorite horse and, of course, himself. Gaius becomes a priest to himself. The Ouroboros of madness closes. In the temple, they do not sacrifice bulls. Too banal for a living deity. Here flows the blood of flamingos, peacocks, grouse, and guinea fowl. The air is thick, sickly sweet with the smell of exotic blood and the rarest incense. The cries of dying birds mix with the whispers of conspirators who do not yet dare to raise their eyes. Day and night, a bloody spectacle goes on here. Romans watch this, and their world collapses. Traditional gods are silent. Jupiter does not hurl lightning bolts at the impostor. Does that mean the heavens are empty? Or do the heavens now belong to him? He goes further. He orders the Palatine Palace to be connected to the temple of Castor and Pollux. An ancient temple, a shrine of the Republic, turns into the Emperor's hallway. He comes out to the people standing between the statues of the divine twins, like their older brother. "Look," his pose says, "we are one family." Passers-by are required to bow. Merchants walking through the forum stop and fall into the mud. Religion has turned into a farce, and the farce has become mandatory law. But in this divine comedy, there is one nuance that makes blood run cold. If he is a god, then who is his family? Gods do not mix their blood with mortals. Gods marry goddesses. Jupiter took Juno, his sister, as his wife. The pharaohs of Egypt kept their blood pure for centuries. Gaius looks at his sisters and sees not relatives. He sees in them the only beings worthy of sharing the Olympian bed with him. The door to the emperor's bedroom closes, cutting off the noise of the outside world. There, in the twilight, behind heavy curtains, begins an act that will finally separate him from humanity. He has already violated political laws. He trampled religious norms. The last barrier remained: biological. The taboo upon which the very concept of civilization rests. But for someone who won a staring contest with Jupiter, a taboo is just another door to be kicked down. Agrippina, Julia Livilla, Drusilla.
3 graces, 3 victims,
Or 3 accomplices. The Roman people, accustomed to everything, begin to whisper about things so vile that they are afraid to speak them aloud, even in the filthiest taverns. But the emperor does not care about whispers. He creates his own pantheon, his personal, depraved Olympus, where there is no place for shame, only a thirst for power over bodies and souls. And in the center of this pantheon shines she, Drusilla, the one he will raise on a pedestal higher than all the goddesses of Rome, and whose death will plunge the empire into an abyss of mourning, compared to which hell will seem like a resort. Sacred family boundaries were erased by a depraved whim. In Rome, there was a concept called nefas, a crime against divine and human laws, a sin that cannot be washed away. And what was happening behind the closed doors of the imperial bedroom was the embodiment of this word. Gaius looked to the east. There, in the Nile Valley, pharaohs married their sisters for centuries to keep the blood of the gods pure. For the Ptolemies, it was a dynastic strategy. For Caligula, it became an obsession. If he is a living god, who can be his mate? Only one in whose veins flows the same divine ichor. A mortal woman would defile his greatness. At official banquets, guests watched the seating arrangements with horror. According to Roman etiquette, the place of honor is next to the host. The wife's place is a bit further away. But Gaius broke protocol with the crunch of bones. Reclining on the couch, higher than his own wife, were his sisters, Agrippina, Julia Livilla, and, of course, her, Drusilla, the favorite, the other half of his split soul. He took her from her lawful husband, Lucius Cassius Longinus, simply because he wanted to, like a child taking away a toy. But it was not just lust. It was a demonstration of absolute power over the very foundations of the universe.
Picture this dinner.
You are lying on a triclinium, choking on exquisite pâté. You are afraid to look up, because what you see might cost you your life. The emperor openly caresses his sister. He whispers words in her ear that would make even a matron's heels blush. He treats her not as a relative, but as a goddess descended to earth. He calls her Panthea, all divine. Rome, a city of stern moralists, where Cato the Elder is still remembered, is forced to watch this and applaud. It was a spit in the face of every father of a family. If the emperor sleeps with his sister, what stops him from coming for your daughter? Or for your son? Nothing. The barriers have collapsed. Gaius dreamed of a pure-blood dynasty. He wanted a child from Drusilla, an heir who would be 100% God, without the impurity of dirty human stock. But nature, unlike the Senate, does not obey the decrees of madmen. On June 10th, year 38, disaster strikes. Drusilla dies.
A fever burns her up in a few days. For Rome, this could have been a relief, the end of shame. For Caligula, it becomes the end of the world. His grief is not the sorrow of a husband or brother. It is the rage of a deity from whom a part of his essence has been stolen. He does not believe she could die. How dared death touch the one he chose? At the moment of her death, he announces that she did not die, but ascended to the heavens to take her place among the stars. But he himself cannot bear the sight of her cold body. He runs. He takes off and rushes from Rome to Campania, and from there to Sicily. He does not cut his hair, does not shave his beard, a sign of the wildest, most barbaric mourning. He wanders the streets of Syracuse, staring into the void, and anyone who crosses his path risks being killed simply for being alive when she is dead. Meanwhile, Rome plunges into hell. The emperor declares a justitium, a suspension of all state and public affairs. But this is not just a holiday.
It is a terror of grief. Under pain of death, it is forbidden to laugh, forbidden to bathe, forbidden to have family dinners, forbidden to trade. The city is paralyzed. Imagine a metropolis, 1 million people, frozen in horror. You walk down the street and are afraid to smile at an acquaintance because a spy might be standing around the corner. One smile, and a denunciation flies to the palace. He rejoiced at the death of the divine Drusilla. The sentence is one: death. History has preserved an absurd and terrible episode for us. One unfortunate merchant sold hot water. Just hot water for washing or drinking. He was seized. The charge: disrespect for the emperor's mourning. The execution was demonstrative. A man was killed for wanting to earn a few coins in a city where time was supposed to stop. Another citizen, Senator Livius Geminius, understood the rules of the game better.
He came to Caligula and swore under oath that he saw with his own eyes Drusilla's soul ascending to heaven and conversing with the gods. For this lie, for this blasphemy, he received 1,000,000 sesterces. Truth was now worth nothing, while a correct, flattering lie made you a rich man. The emperor demands that Drusilla be worshipped as a goddess. Her statues are placed in the Curia, in the temple of Venus. Women must swear by her name. Any violation of the oath is punished, just like insulting majesty. Romans, gritting their teeth, learn new prayers. They pray to a woman whose only feet was sharing a bed with her mad brother. The atmosphere in the city becomes unbearably suffocating. It is claustrophobia on an imperial scale. It seems the very air is poisoned by the miasma of the ruler's decaying mind. People hide in their houses, curtain their windows. The silence on the streets of Rome is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of a cemetery. Everyone is waiting for this nightmare to end,
for the emperor to return and say the mourning is over. But they do not understand one thing. The nightmare is just beginning. Drusilla's death broke the last fuse in Gaius's head. Now he is alone in an empty universe. He has no equals. He has no love. Only power remains, and a void that must be filled with something. When the mourning finally officially ends, Rome exhales. People can wash, eat, and laugh again,
But this laughter sounds nervous. The treasury is empty. Tiberius's huge inheritance, almost 3 billion sesterces, was squandered on spectacles, gifts, and insane projects in less than a year. Mountains of gold turned into dust, and the emperor's appetites only grow. He needs new entertainment to drown out the pain of loss, and he needs money to pay for this entertainment. Caligula's gaze turns to the Roman elite, not to their political influence, that is already trampled. He looks at their property.
And at their wives. The emperor understands.
To feel alive, he needs to humiliate others. He needs sharp seasoning for the bland daily routine of absolute power. And he finds it in fear. Evenings at the palace resume. Torchlight dances on the walls, casting long, crooked shadows. Tables groan under dishes brought from all ends of the earth. Wine flows like a river. Patricians put on their best togas, their wives their best jewelry. They go to the palace like cattle going to the slaughterhouse, meekly, hoping that today the butcher's knife will choose someone else. Music plays, but no one hears the melody. Everyone listens to the footsteps. The emperor enters the hall. He smiles, but there is no warmth in this smile. It is the grin of a hungry wolf seeing a herd of well-fed sheep before him. The feast begins, and the main dish on this table will not be peacock tongues, but human dignity. Caligula slowly walks around the tables. He peers into the guests' faces. He is looking for fear, and he finds it everywhere. Men avert their eyes. Women tremble. He stops in front of one couple, a young, beautiful matron, the wife of a respected senator. Gaius takes her by the chin, turns her face to the light, inspecting her like a buyer inspects a horse at the market. He evaluates the whiteness of her skin, the shape of her eyes, the fullness of her lips. Silence reigns in the hall, so dense that the sound of a dropped fork would sound like a clap of thunder. The husband sits nearby, pale as a sheet. He looks at his plate, clenching his fists so hard his nails dig into his palms. He knows what comes next. All of Rome knows. But he is silent, because he has children at home. Because one word of protest, and tomorrow his lineage will end. The emperor makes a hand signal, a light, casual gesture. "You, let's go." The woman stands up. Her legs do not support her, but she walks. She follows him, away from the banquet hall, into the adjacent chambers. The doors close, and the feast continues. Guests eat, drink, make small talk about the weather and gladiators, but every bite sticks in their throat. Every minute drags like an eternity. They sit and wait for the master to return. And when he returns, he will not be silent. He will tell everyone what their wife was like in bed. A public review of a rape. The final stage of moral decay, elevated to the rank of a state ceremony. In this hall, amidst gold and silk, not just Roman morality dies. Here, the very idea of personal inviolability dies. Caligula shows them, you are nobody. Your titles, your ancestors, your laws are nothing before my will. Your honor belongs to me, just as your taxes do. And while dessert is being finished at the palace, Rome understands. The monster is not satiated. He is just getting a taste for it. The clang of a dropped silver fork in this hall sounds like a catapult shot. Dozens of heads pull into shoulders. The servant who dropped the utensil turns so pale his face merges with the marble column. He knows. His life now hangs by a thread thinner than a spiderweb. Welcome to the Imperial Feast, the most exquisite, most expensive, and most terrifying place in Rome. Here they serve flamingo tongues and the livers of rare fish, but all the guests have the same taste in their mouths, the taste of metal and bile, the taste of animal terror. An invitation to the Palatine is no longer considered an honor. It is a summons. It is a survival test. You receive a perfumed scroll with the imperial seal, and your family starts saying goodbye to you as if you were leaving for war. But you cannot refuse. To say, "I am sick," is to sign a death sentence not only for yourself, but for your children. So you put on your best toga, rub yourself with oils to hide the smell of cold sweat, and walk into the lion's mouth. At the tables lie the cream of Roman society: consuls, praetors, triumphant generals. People whose ancestors conquered the world. Now they look like frightened school children. They eat mechanically, tasting nothing. They drink wine, but it does not intoxicate, only heightens the anxiety. Because in the center of the hall, on a raised platform, reclines he, the predator. Gaius Caligula does not just eat, he watches. His eyes dart around the hall, scanning the guests. He is looking for a victim for today. Watch how he stands up, slowly, lazily, wiping his lips with a silk napkin. Conversations at the tables instantly cut off. The silence becomes a vacuum, sucking the air out of lungs. Only the shuffling of his sandals on the mosaic is audible. He approaches the couch of the respected senator Valerius Asiaticus. Next to Valerius is his wife, a beauty famous for her modesty. Gaius stops. He says not a word. He simply takes her by the chin and lifts her face to the torchlight. Imagine you are this senator. You are sitting half a meter away. You see the madman's fingers gripping the face of the woman you love. He examines her like livestock at a market. He turns her head left, right. He unceremoniously pulls back the edge of her stola, evaluating her shoulders and chest. What will you do? Grab a carving knife and plunge it into his throat? Then the Praetorians standing by the walls will slaughter your entire line down to the 7th generation. So you sit. You smile. Your smile looks like a paralytic's grimace, but you hold it because this smile is the only shield for your family. Get up, the emperor tosses out, and she gets up. She follows him, eyes cast down, burning with shame, but not daring to disobey. They leave the hall. The heavy doors of the imperial bedroom close behind them with a dull thud. And here begins the most sophisticated torture. Waiting. The feast continues. Servants bring new dishes. Musicians play a cheerful melody on flutes, but no one can swallow a bite. All eyes are fixed on that senator whose wife was just taken away. He sits alone on a wide couch. The empty space next to him screams louder than any siren. Colleagues avert their eyes, afraid to catch his shame. He must eat. He must drink. He must pretend nothing is happening. Those are the rules of the game. If he shows anger, he is a traitor. If he shows grief, he insults the emperor's joy. An hour passes, maybe 2. The doors swing open again. Gaius returns. He looks slightly disheveled, his face shiny. Following him, stumbling, comes the woman. Her eyes are red, mascara smeared, toga crumpled. She does not look at her husband. She wants to fall through the earth, disappear, dissolve into the air. She returns to her place, and the husband, this proud Roman patrician, must move over to give her room. He must, perhaps, even hand her a glass of water. But for Caligula, this is not enough. The humiliation must be public and total. He takes his place at the head of the table again.
and in a loud voice, drowning out the music, begins to tell the story. He gives a review. Like a theater critic discussing an actor's performance, the emperor discusses the bedroom talents of a noble matron. "Cold," he grimaces, biting into a piece of pheasant. "Lay there like a log. Boring." Or, conversely, "But this one scratches. A passionate beast. Who would have thought, looking at her sour face?" He savors the details. He describes moles in intimate places, body features, the sounds she made. He strips her with words in front of all Rome. And the hall listens. Hundreds of men listen to how the emperor raped their friend's wife, and they nod. Someone even squeezes out a sycophantic chuckle. In this moment, Caligula destroys not just a specific family. He destroys the very foundation of Roman society, the pater familias, the sacred authority of the father of the family. What kind of father are you? What kind of protector, if you sit and listen to another man discuss your wife's body and pour yourself more wine while doing it? This is not lust. For lust, he has slaves, he has brothels. This is politics. This is a demonstration that there is only one man in Rome, the emperor. Everyone else is a eunuch, devoid of will and honor. He turns the aristocracy into a pack of beaten dogs, licking the hand that struck them. The atmosphere of these feasts is saturated with surrealism. Golden dishes, exquisite food, mountains of flowers, and absolute, concentrated fear. People come here as rich men and heroes, and leave as broken, crushed creatures, hating themselves for their cowardice. Caligula revels in this. He sees right through them. He knows, as long as they fear for their villas and their lives, they will endure anything. But this theater of the absurd has a price, and the price is gold. The feasts become crazier. Dishes are sprinkled with gold shavings. Pearls worth entire estates are dissolved in vinegar to drink this sour, cloudy solution in one gulp, just to brag. Bread is baked from gold, as if metal can satisfy the stomach. Gaius's extravagance knows no bounds. He builds bridges across the sea, levels mountains, changes river courses. Money accumulated by the miserly Tiberius melts like snow under the Italian sun. 2,700,000,000 sesterces. A huge mountain of gold that seemed inexhaustible has disappeared. The bottom of the treasury is already visible. The emperor looks into the vault and sees emptiness. But the fun must not stop. The show must go on, and the actors need to be paid. Legions demand wages. Praetorians wait for bonuses. Where to get money if honest methods are too slow for a deity's appetites? Caligula looks around his palace. He sees marble, silk, statues, and he sees his guests, senators who are still trying to preserve remnants of dignity. In his inflamed brain, an idea is born worthy of his madness. If Rome is his property, why not force this property to generate income in the most direct, dirtiest way? For the first time in history, the Imperial Palace on the sacred Palatine Hill is preparing to change its sign. Luxurious halls that have seen triumphs and councils of sages will soon hear very different sounds. Sounds of bargaining, bed springs squeaking, and coins thrown for sold love. The Emperor of Rome becomes the empire's chief pimp. Gold has no smell. This phrase will be attributed to another emperor, Vespasian, decades later. But the true author of this philosophy was Gaius. When the bottom of the imperial treasury appeared from under the last coins like a dry riverbed, Rome didn't just introduce new taxes. Rome saw the transformation of sacred power into a market stall. The Palatine Hill, the heart of the empire, the place where Romulus founded the city, where gods and Caesars lived, changed overnight. The smell of incense and solemn silence vanished. Now the palace corridors filled with cheap perfume, drunken laughter, and the jingle of copper. Welcome to the Imperial Lupanar, the most expensive and shameful brothel in human history. The emperor did not look for half measures. Why tax prostitutes if you can become the empire's chief pimp yourself? He ordered an entire wing of the palace to be cleared. Luxurious chambers were partitioned into cramped cubicles, cellae, exactly like in the dirty alleys of the Subura. Above each door, they hung a sign with a name and a price. But reading these names, Romans froze in stupor. There were no Greek or Syrian slave names there. There were names from the lists of the most ancient nobility: Cornelia, Julia, Claudia, wives of consuls, daughters of praetors, mothers of families whose honor had been considered inviolable for centuries. Gaius declared mobilization, but not for war, for the streets. Fathers and husbands received orders to bring their women to the palace to perform state duty. Imagine this surreal parade. Noble matrons, hiding their faces in veils, walk up the marble steps, nudged by husbands who fear disobedience more than shame. They are put in cubicles. The emperor personally instructs them on how to smile at clients, how to entice passers-by. For him, this is a fun game. He walks between the rows, adjusting their togas like a caring shopkeeper adjusting goods in a window. The palace doors swing open for everyone. Any plebeian, any freedman, any soldier with money can enter here. The entrance ticket is not just payment for pleasure, it is an act of loyalty. Heralds in the forum shout, "Help the emperor! Fill the treasury!" And the crowd pours in. Some go out of curiosity. When else will there be a chance to buy a night with a woman one couldn't even look at before? Others go out of fear. After all, refusing to visit the emperor's establishment could be seen as rebellion. A heavy, sticky spirit of debauchery and hopelessness hangs in the air. You see a centurion throwing coins into the hem of a crying aristocrat. You see her husband standing in the corridor counting the proceeds because the emperor demands strict accounting. Rome's social hierarchy has collapsed. A slave can buy a mistress. Money has become the only measure of a human's value. Caligula watches this from a balcony, and his face shines. He is not just earning. He is mixing blue blood with dirt, proving that all these arrogant patricians are no different from streetwalkers if you press them. But a brothel is long money. The emperor needs millions right now. And then the second act of this farce opens. The Great Auction. Gaius announces a sale of imperial property. Mountains of junk are brought out to the forum. Old furniture from the palace, moth-eaten carpets, armor of long-dead gladiators, his sister's dresses. All the trash that gathered dust in storerooms for years is now declared sacred relics. The auctioneer bangs his gavel, and the emperor sits nearby and helps conduct the bidding. Senators sit in the front row. They were herded here forcibly. They know the rules. If the emperor looks at you and names a price, you buy. It doesn't matter if you need this broken chair or not. It doesn't matter if you have the money. You nod. A legendary scene described by historians happens right here. The old praetor Aponius Saturninus, exhausted by long sitting and the heat, is careless enough to doze off right during the bidding. His head begins to nod rhythmically in his sleep. Caligula notices this. He nudges the auctioneer in the side. "Look, the praetor is nodding. He's raising the bid." The auctioneer picks up the game. 2 million! Who offers more? Saturninus offers 3, 4,
5. The gavel bangs in time with the pecs of the sleeping old man. The price skyrockets. When the unfortunate man is finally woken up, he is told the joyous news. He has just bought 13 old invalid gladiators for 9 million sesterces. The old man is ruined. His fortune, accumulated over a lifetime, vanished in 5 minutes of sleep. And the emperor laughs so hard the echo bounces around the forum. This is not trade. This is robbery with elements of stand-up comedy. Others are forced to buy even more absurd things. Here is a bandage worn by Germanicus himself. 2 million, shouts Gaius. And the senator pays, kissing the dirty rag with tears of tenderness in his eyes, because the alternative is an accusation of disrespect for the memory of the emperor's father. The richest people of Rome leave the auction as beggars, clutching useless junk in their hands. The elite economy is destroyed. Money is pumped from the pockets of old families into Gaius's bottomless chests. But even this is not enough for him. He introduces taxes on everything. On food, on courts, on porters. Porters must give up part of their daily earnings. City prostitutes, the price of 1 client a day. Centurions walk through markets, beating small change out of fishmongers. Rome groans. But the most terrible sight awaits those who come to the palace with tribute. The emperor falls in love with gold physically. It is no longer greed, it is fetishism. He orders mountains of gold coins, aurae, to be scattered on the floor of a huge hall. He takes off his shoes. He walks on gold with bare feet, feeling the cold metal against his skin. He lies down on this pile, rolls in it like a pig in mud, scoops up coins with his hands, tosses them into the air, letting a golden rain fall on his face. His eyes burn with a mad gleam. "I am rich. I am richer than everyone," he whispers, hugging the cold metal. In this moment, he looks like a dragon from myths, guarding his cave. Only instead of fire, he spews decrees about executions. At the beginning of the year, he stands at the palace threshold and personally accepts gifts. Every citizen is obliged to bring a strena, a New Year's offering. People walk in an endless stream, throwing coins into the hem of his toga. The Emperor of Rome stands like a beggar on a porch, greedily grabbing copper and silver. Shame? Dignity? These words are forgotten. There is only the insatiable womb of the treasury, which demands more and more fuel. The imperial aristocracy is finally broken. They sold their wives, sold their titles, gave their money for trash. They have nothing left but fear. But Gaius, bathing in gold, births a new ambition. There is enough money now. The treasury is full again, albeit at the cost of all Rome's honor. And what does an emperor do who has money and boredom? He starts dreaming of glory as a military commander. Victories over senators and women are not enough for him. He needs a real triumph, one that would eclipse Caesar and Augustus. But where to find an enemy if the whole world already lies at your feet? Caligula's gaze falls on the map. Britain, the misty island at the edge of the world, wild and unconquered. And even further, Germany, where his father once fought. Gaius decides it is time to put on armor. But the war he unleashes will be as insane as his reign. It will be a war not with people. It will be a war with the elements themselves. And legions accustomed to blood and steel will soon face an order that makes them doubt the reality of what is happening. The gold is collected. The troops are ready. The circus is going on tour to the shores of the English Channel. The north wind hits their faces, tearing plumes from helmets. Salty dust grits on teeth. Before you is the English Channel, a leaden, cold sea separating the civilized world from the misty island of Britain. On the coast of Gaul, the most formidable military machine of antiquity is lined up. Tens of thousands of legionnaires encased in armor, veterans whose bodies are covered in scars from German swords and Parthian arrows. Cavalry ready to break into a gallop, siege engines, ballistae, and catapults aimed at the horizon. The air trembles with tension. Soldiers wait for the order, wait for the horn signal to board ships and bring Rome a new province. They are ready to die. They are ready to kill. But they are not ready for what will happen in the next minute. Emperor Gaius Caesar gallops before the formation on his favorite horse. He is in a breastplate decorated with precious stones, in a cloak that costs more than the entire equipment of the cohort standing here. He peers into the distance. But his enemy is not the Britons painted in blue dye. His enemy is not hiding in the forests. His enemy is splashing at the feet of his army. Suddenly, the command sounds. Battle trumpets roar. Attack! Legionnaires grip their pylons, preparing for landing. But there are no ships. Where to attack? And then the heralds relay an order that makes experienced centurions lose their breath from shame. The emperor declares war on Neptune, the god of the seas. The ocean dared to block my path? I will punish him, screams Caligula, shaking a spear at the surf. Artillery receives the order to open fire. Imagine this surrealism. Powerful ballistae, capable of smashing fortress walls, begin hurling heavy stones and logs into the water. Projectiles go to the bottom with a splash. Catapults fling arrows into the oncoming waves. The emperor runs along the shore, cheering the soldiers on as if a hot battle is underway. Hit him! Chop the foam! Soldiers exchange glances. In their eyes is panic, not from fear of death, but from fear of madness. They realize they are commanded by a lunatic. But discipline in the Roman army is hammered into the subcortex deeper than the instinct of self-preservation, and they begin to chop the water with swords. Thousands of grown men, the army's elite, stand knee-deep in cold water fighting the waves. But the humiliation is just beginning. When the battle subsides, the signal sounds to collect trophies. In Roman tradition, trophies are enemy weapons, gold, captives. It is proof of valor. Gaius orders the soldiers to bend down. Collect the loot! The ocean has surrendered! And the legionnaires, swallowing bitter bile, begin collecting seashells. Wet, dirty mollusks. They fill their helmets with them. They stuff the folds of their tunics with them. Centurions, who just yesterday dreamed of a triumph, now walk between the rows, ensuring every soldier has gathered enough oysters and scallops. Here is the tribute the conquered ocean pays to the capital and the Palatine, proclaims Gaius. He shines. In his eyes, this is the greatest victory. He defeated the elements. He forced the sea to submit, and the army to become accomplices in this farce. It was a psychological break. By forcing legions to collect seashells instead of gold, he trampled their pride. A soldier who agreed to become a laughingstock on the commander's orders is no longer a soldier. He is a puppet. He is broken. Now he will carry out any order, even the most criminal one, because there is nowhere lower to fall. Honor remained there on the shore, among piles of rotting seaweed. As a reward for this disgrace, Caligula promises each warrior 100 denarii. He throws this money at them with such delivery as if he made them rich men. Go now, rich men. Go now, happy men. A pitiful handout for a sold soul. To immortalize this triumph, Gaius orders a lighthouse to be built. a giant tower, the tallest in the world, not to point the way for ships, but to stand as an eternal monument to his victory over emptiness. Soldiers, instead of fighting, turn into builders. They haul stones, erecting a cyclopean structure later called the Tour d'Ordre, the Tower of Order. Night after night, huge fires burn at its top, the light of which is visible even in Britain. The Britons probably looked at this glow with bewilderment, unaware that they had been conquered without a foot even stepping on their land. Caligula returns to Rome not as a madman who failed a campaign. He returns as a victor. He brings chests full of seashells with him. He demands a triumph. But whom to lead in chains before the chariot? You can't put Neptune in shackles. And then another act of forgery occurs. Gaius orders the tallest Gauls to be selected from local tribes, those with blonde hair. And if there isn't enough blonde hair, they dye it red. They are forced to learn German words, dressed in hides, and passed off as captured German chieftains. The theater of the absurd reaches its apogee. Romans see a procession. Fake Germans walk carrying baskets of seashells, and following them rides the emperor, confident in his divinity. The Senate, of course, votes for the triumph. Who would dare say that seashells are not gold? Who would risk noting that the Germans speak suspiciously good Gallic dialect? No one. Lies have become the state religion. But in this campaign, something important happened. The army, that sacred cow of Rome, the support of the throne, felt betrayed for the first time. Soldiers can forgive cruelty. They can forgive delayed wages, but they do not forgive when clowns are made of them. In the camp tents, when officers leave, quiet conversations begin. The grinding of whetstones sounds louder than usual. Legionnaires clean their swords of salt water with particular diligence. They understand. This emperor is not just a tyrant. He is a disgrace. And disgrace in Rome is washed away only with blood. Caligula feels this coldness. He sees how the soldiers look at him, not with adoration, like at Germanicus, but with sullen hatred. And this fear breeds a new wave of aggression in him. If he cannot trust people, he will trust animals. After all, animals do not betray, do not weave conspiracies, and do not laugh behind one's back. Returning to Rome, Gaius spends more and more time in the stables. There, amidst the smell of hay and manure, he finds the only creature that, it seems to him, is worthy of his greatness. A swift stallion named Incitatus. A horse that never says no. A horse that does not demand republican freedoms. In the emperor's sick imagination, this beast becomes the ideal politician. And Gaius decides to teach Rome a final lesson on the nature of power. A lesson that will show senators their true place. If they are ready to bow to a horse, then why does Rome need people in togas at all? The marble stalls are already preparing to receive the new father of the fatherland. You enter the stable, but your nose does not smell the usual scent of manure and musty hay. Instead, the air is filled with the aroma of expensive Eastern incense. The walls here are not rotting planks, but pure polished marble reflecting your frightened faces. The mangers where oats are poured are carved from ivory, a material so expensive that one such feeder could feed a Roman family for a whole year. Welcome to the residence of the most influential politician of the era. And no, it is not a senator or a prefect. It is Incitatus, a swift Spanish stallion. Look at him. Smooth, sleek coat, muscles rolling under the skin. On the beast's neck is a collar studded with precious stones, the value of which exceeds the budget of a small province. He is covered with purple blankets. Purple is the color of emperors, a color for the illegal wearing of which ordinary mortals are executed. But this horse is allowed everything. He has his own house, a staff of 18 personal servants, a bedroom, and furniture. This is not just a love for animals. This is the angriest, most sophisticated political satire in human history. Caligula did not go crazy when he settled the horse in the palace. He simply decided to show the Roman elite their true place. He seems to be saying to them, "You are proud of your ancestors. You boast of your togas. Look at this horse. He eats from ivory while you pick up crumbs from my table. He wears jewels you pawned to moneylenders to pay for my whims." The absurdity reaches a peak when heralds run around Rome demanding silence be observed. "Quiet! Incitatus is sleeping!" The whole district around the Circus Maximus freezes. Blacksmiths stop banging hammers, merchants close shops, dogs are afraid to bark.
For to wake the imperial horse means to wake the wrath of the emperor himself. Soldiers of the Praetorian Guard, the army's elite, patrol the streets guarding the animal's sleep. Think about this. Men who conquered the world now work as nannies for livestock. But the most humiliating thing happens in the evening. You are brought an invitation. It bears a seal. Incitatus invites you to dinner. And you go. You put on your best clothes and go to visit a horse. You enter the living room, bow to the four-legged host. Servants set the table. Golden goblets, Falernian wine aged 100 years. Incitatus is served oats with gold flakes, and you drink to his health. "To our noble friend," proclaims one of the consuls, and his voice trembles. You clink glasses with emptiness, watching the animal chew. In the horse's eyes is calm indifference. In the people's eyes is an abyss of shame. Caligula watches this spectacle with delight. He sees old aristocrats fawning over a stallion, and then he strikes the main blow. He announces his intention to make Incitatus consul. Rome freezes. Consul is the highest elected office in the Republic. It is the pinnacle of a career. It is power over the army and the law. And now this position will be taken by a horse. Historians have argued for centuries. Was this the raving of a madman? No, it was a spit. A spit in the face of the entire system. Gaius explains it with deadly logic. This horse, at least, does not steal. He doesn't weave conspiracies. He isn't a hypocrite. He is more honest than any of you corrupt skins in the Senate. So why can't he rule Rome? And do you know what the scariest part is? The Senate is ready to vote yes. If Caligula had managed to submit the proposal officially, they would have raised their hands. They would have confirmed the horse in office. They would have come to him with reports and asked to approve the budget, watching the consul wave his tail chasing away flies. Because fear burned out the remnants of common sense in them. Incitatus in a consul's toga is a mirror in which Rome saw its ugly, distorted reflection. It is a sentence for a state where a career depends not on talent, but on a tyrant's whim. Bureaucracy turned into a farce. If a horse can be an official, then officials are nothing more than talking cattle. In this marble stable, not just respect for power dies, meaning dies here. Power becomes surreal. Today you are a consul, tomorrow you are a slave, and the day after tomorrow, your boss will be a stallion. The rules have disappeared. There is no stability. There is only chaos controlled by the mood of one man. But while Incitatus crunches on select barley, different sounds are heard in another part of the palace. Not neighing, and not the jingling of golden harness. The scratching of a quill on parchment is heard there. The emperor is working. He is making lists.
The jokes with the horse are over.
The accounting of death begins. Satire gives way to cold, mechanical horror. After all, to keep a horse in luxury and throw feasts, one needs to eliminate those who might hinder this, or simply those who have stopped being funny. Gaius sits at a table. Before him are two books. On the cover of one is written sword. On the cover of the other, dagger. These are not metaphors. These are registers. In them are names. The names of those who will die today, tomorrow, in a week. There are no emotions here, only calculation. The corpse production line starts at full capacity, and now no one can hide behind the mask of a jester or an obedient guest at a horse party. Laughter in Rome falls silent completely. The executioners take the stage. Perfect order reigns in the emperor's office. There is no chaos of a madman here. The pedantry of a serial killer rules. On the table lie two scrolls. On one, the word sword is written in calligraphic handwriting. On the other, dagger. This is not literature. These are the accounting books of hell. Every morning, Gaius begins by ticking off names. Death in Rome has ceased to be a tragedy or punishment. It has turned into a routine, a boring administrative procedure necessary to keep the ruler toned. Let them hate so long as they fear, Caligula liked to repeat, quoting a line from an old tragedy. Think about this phrase. It is not just a motto. It is a formula for absolute freedom. If you don't care about the subject's love, if you are indifferent to their hatred, you become invulnerable to morality. You go beyond the limits of human judgment. Fear is the only currency that circulates in the palace, and there is no inflation here. Executions are now carried out not in dark dungeons, but right during lunch. This is a new type of table entertainment. Why call acrobats or poets if you can watch a skilled executioner separate a head from a body with one blow? Gaius finds this soothing. He eats, he drinks, he makes small talk. While a few steps from his couch, people are deprived of life. Guests are obliged to watch. To look away is impolite. To close one's eyes is suspicious. A gag reflex can cost you your head. And the Roman elite learns to chew to the sounds of wheezing and metal hitting bone. Appetite disappears, but fear forces them to swallow. But physical death is too simple. It is too fast. Make him feel that he is dying, Gaius instructs his executioners. He likes to stretch the process, to turn the fading of life into a long, agonizing symphony. However, he becomes a true gourmet in matters of psychological torture. Any fool with a club can break a body, to break a soul, to force a person to betray themselves, to destroy everything human in them, leaving only animal terror. That is true art. History has preserved one case for us that makes one cold even 2,000 years later. There was a noble equestrian in Rome named Pastor, a rich, respected man. He had a son, a handsome young man. Somehow he displeased the emperor. Maybe he laughed too loudly. Maybe he was too handsome. In the morning, Gaius orders the youth executed. Cruelly, senselessly. And on the evening of the same day, a messenger knocks on the father's door. The emperor invites you to dinner. Imagine this moment. You just found out your child was killed. Your heart is torn to shreds. You want to howl, tear your hair out, curse the tyrant. But if you refuse, you die. And not just you die, but before that, all your remaining relatives will be killed. Your wife, your second son. So Pastor puts on a festive toga. He washes his face, washing away the tears. He goes to the palace. He enters the hall where the murderer of his son reclines on pillows, beaming with pleasure. Gaius greets him cordially. "Drink with me, my friend," he exclaims, holding out a cup of wine.
and the father takes the cup. His hand does not tremble.
He drinks to the emperor's health.
Caligula watches him with the intense interest of a vivisectionist. He orders wreaths of flowers to be brought. Pastor puts on a wreath. The emperor jokes, tells anecdotes, and Pastor laughs. Do you hear this laughter? It is a sound that should crack mirrors. It is not laughter of joy. It is the sound of a human spine breaking. A father laughs in the face of his child's murderer because he has another son at home. He sells his grief, his pride, his soul to save the one who is still alive. All the cruelty of torture basements pales before this scene. Exquisite sadism lies not in the rack and not in red-hot iron. It lies in forcing the victim to thank the tormentor. Gaius enjoys this. He sees, this man now belongs to him completely. Nothing of his own remains in him, not even the right to tears. Terror becomes total. People are killed in the Senate simply for intimidation.
One senator was cut to pieces right in the Curia building because the emperor called him an enemy. Others are forced to run behind his chariot in togas, sweating and gasping for kilometers along a dusty road while he carelessly drives the horses. He plays with lives like a child plays with soldiers, tearing their heads off when he gets bored with the game. I have the power to do anything to anyone, he tells his grandmother Antonia. And he proves it every day. Once at a feast, he suddenly starts laughing loudly, hysterically. The consuls sitting nearby timidly ask, "Caesar, what caused your amusement?" Gaius looks at them with a gentle smile and answers, "I just thought that I only have to nod, and both your throats will be cut right here." The consuls turn pale, smiles slide off their faces, and Gaius bursts into laughter again. For him, this is the best joke in the world. The realization of absolute divine permissiveness. But in this mechanics of horror, there is one weak element: the tool. The executioner cannot work forever without getting blood up to his elbows. Those who execute orders, those who stand behind the emperor's back with swords, the Praetorian Guard, begin to sense something is wrong. They are professional soldiers. They are used to killing Rome's enemies, not old men and children. They are used to discipline, not the whims of a madman who forces them to search for seashells or guard a horse's sleep. Every order for a new execution, every insane antic of the emperor stretches the guard's nerves tighter. They see what Gaius is doing and understand. Sooner or later, he will order them executed too. Simply because he doesn't like the color of their cloaks or the expression on their faces at the morning briefing. Loyalty, bought with gold, begins to rust from spilled blood. In the palace, amidst the endless festival of death, shadows begin to thicken. In the dark corners of the barracks, where the emperor's drunken laughter does not reach, whispers sound. Men in uniform exchange glances, and in their looks, one reads not fear, but cold, calculating determination. Among them is one man, a tribune of the Praetorian Guard. His name is Cassius Chaerea, a veteran who went through the meat grinder of the Germanic wars, a stern, laconic soldier. Gaius chose him as his favorite target for mockery. The emperor finds it amusing to humiliate this old warrior. He does not know that by mocking Chaerea, he is pulling the pin from a grenade that is already in his pocket. The conspiracy matures not in the Senate, where cowards sit. The conspiracy matures where swords are worn. Imagine a man made of scars and iron discipline. Cassius Chaerea, tribune of the Praetorian Guard, a living legend. He stood in the shield wall against Germanic berserkers. He spilled his own and others' blood in the icy mud of northern forests. He survived where even stones broke. This is not a court shuffler. This is a killing machine whose loyalty to Rome was forged in the fire of battles.
But now, his main enemy is not a barbarian with an axe. His enemy is a 28-year-old youth in silks who thinks humiliating a hero is the height of wit. Every day, the same vile spectacle plays out in the palace. Chaerea, as a senior officer, comes to the emperor for the password for the guard for the coming night. This is a sacred procedure. The password is the key to the emperor's safety. Usually, these are words like victory, loyalty, or fortune. But Gaius turns the ritual into a vulgar farce. Looking into the old soldier's eyes, he throws out with a nasty smirk, Priap, the god of fertility with a giant phallus, or Venus, or girl. Imagine the tribune's face turning to stone.
Around him, perfumed boys from the entourage giggle. Eunuchs cover their mouths with their palms. Senators squeeze out a sycophantic chuckle. And Chaerea must stand at attention. He must repeat this word to pass it to the soldiers. Password: girl. He must swallow this like swallowing broken glass. But for Caligula, this is not enough. When the tribune bends down to kiss the emperor's ring, a traditional gesture of loyalty, Gaius holds out his hand with his fingers folded in an obscene, offensive figure, mimicking sexual intercourse. And Chaerea kisses this hand. Every damn day. Psychologists say every person has a limit, a boiling point. Gaius, in his divine blindness, forgot that Praetorians are not slaves. They are wolves he keeps on a leash. And if you hit a wolf on the snout and laugh at him, one day the leash will snap. For Chaerea, this moment came not because of high politics, not because of the empty treasury or the humiliation of the Senate. It became personal. He realized, either he washes away this shame with the tyrant's blood, or he ceases to be a man. The conspiracy is born not in wine cellars and not in secret villas. It is born right in the barracks, under the emperor's nose. Chaerea finds like-minded people. Cornelius Sabinus, another tribune sickened by what is happening. Annius Vinicianus, a senator afraid for his life. The circle widens, but this is not a hobby club. It is a dance on a razor's edge. The atmosphere in the palace resembles a hermetic powder keg to which a fuse has been put. Everyone suspects everyone. Caligula's spies are everywhere. One careless word in the bathhouse, one side glance, one whisper too long in the corridor, and you are a corpse. The conspirators understand. There is no time. Gaius is becoming increasingly unpredictable. Today he demands the moon from the sky, and tomorrow he might order the Praetorians to cut each other's throats for fun. Either we kill him now, or he kills us all later. This thought pulses in the temples of every participant. The fear of death recedes before the fear of living in this endless humiliation. They choose a date, January 24th, year 41, the Palatine Games. The theater, the perfect place. Noise, crowd, turmoil. The music will drown out screams, and the tightness won't let the German bodyguards, the emperor's faithful dogs, come to help in time. It is the classic scenario of Julius Caesar's assassination, only now the killers are not politicians in togas, but soldiers with swords. The very people whose only job is to protect the princeps body. The tension of the last days before the strike is almost physically palpable. Imagine what it is like to stand guard at the door of the bedroom of the man you are going to kill. To hear his breathing. To see how he eats, how he sleeps, how he plays with pearls. Chaerea continues to come for the password. He continues to listen to jokes about the old woman and the impotent. But now there is no submission in his eyes. In them is the icy emptiness of a man who has already made a decision. He looks at the emperor's neck,
and estimates exactly where the blade must enter to sever the artery with one blow. Gaius, blinded by his own radiance, notices nothing. He has reported rumors, strange moods in the guard, but he waves them off. Who would dare raise a hand against a living god? Jupiter will not allow it. Venus will protect. He believes in his invulnerability as sincerely as a child believes monsters under the bed will disappear if you cover your head with a blanket. But the monsters are not under the bed. The monsters are standing behind his back, gripping the hilts of gladiuses. On the night before the games, Cassius Chaerea sharpens his sword. Metal quietly hisses against stone. In this sound is a sentence. This is not just an assassination attempt. It is an execution. They do not want poison. Poison is the weapon of cowards and women, as Caligula himself would say. They need steel. They need contact. They want to look into his eyes at the moment life leaves his body. They want him to know, this is not an accident. This is retribution. January 24th arrives. The morning is cold and clear. Rome flocks to the theater, anticipating the spectacle. People take seats, merchants sell sweets. The air smells of celebration. The emperor wakes up in a bad mood. His stomach hurts from yesterday's gluttony. He thinks about skipping the games, staying in bed. Fate wavers. If he stays, the conspiracy might fail. The killer's nerves are at the limit. They won't withstand another day of waiting. But friends persuade him to go. The people are waiting for their god, Caesar. And he agrees. He puts on sandals and leaves his chambers. The palace corridors are long and echoing. Gaius walks through them for the last time. He walks towards his death, surrounded by those who swore to die for him. The irony of history reaches the absolute. The system of absolute power he built on fear spawned killers from those who were supposed to be its foundation. The Praetorians exchange glances. Signs are given. There is no way back. In the Cryptoporticus, an underground passage connecting the palace to the theater, it is dark and cool. An ideal place for an ambush. Shadows are thick here. The echo hides footsteps. Chaerea waits there. He grips the sword hilt so hard his knuckles turn white. He knows, in a few minutes the world will change forever. The era of madness will end, but the era of blood will begin. And he, a simple soldier, will be the one to turn the wheel of history by plunging metal into the flesh of a god. The emperor's steps approach, the tapping of sandals, voices of the entourage. The heart beats in the chest like a hammer on an anvil. Time is up. Twilight. The damp coolness of the underground passage, called the Cryptoporticus, contrasts sharply with the noise and stuffiness of the crowded theater. It smells of dampness and old stone here. Gaius stops. He is 29 years old, but he looks like an old man, balding, with a pale, puffy face on which a grimace of eternal dissatisfaction is frozen. He notices a group of boys, noble teenagers from Asia, brought for a performance. The emperor starts a conversation, jokes, orders them to prepare for the exit. He is relaxed. He feels safe. After all, around him are his faithful Praetorians. But Cassius Chaerea is no longer listening to jokes. He takes a step forward, not as a subordinate, but as a judge. In this moment, time stretches. Chaerea raises his hand. It is not a greeting, it is a signal. "Do it!" he shouts in Latin. An old soldier's cry. The sword slashes through the air with a whistle. The blow lands on the jaw and neck.
It is not fatal, but it is enough to destroy the aura of inviolability.
Gaius falls to his knees. In his eyes is not pain, but sincere, childish surprise. How? How dares steel touch the flesh of a god? He screams a phrase that will go down in history as the epitaph of his madness. "I am still alive!" He believes this is a mistake, that now the heavens will open and save him. But the heavens are silent. Instead of lightning, a hail of blows rains down on him. Other conspirators pounce on him like a school of piranhas. Cornelius Sabinus, Julius Lupus, they all want to dip their blades into the tyrant's blood. This is not an execution, it is a lynching. 30 blows. 30 times metal enters the body, releasing the spirit of the empire onto the cold stone floor. They hit him even when he stops breathing. They are not killing a man, they are killing their fear, their humiliations, their sleepless nights. The scream, "I am alive!" chokes in a gurgling wheeze. Finally, it is all over. The god is dead. His body lies in a pool of blood, looking like a pile of dirty rags. But the death of the emperor is not the end of the nightmare. It is only the beginning of chaos. The news of the murder breaks out of the cryptoporticus and flies through the palace like a forest fire. The German guard, Caligula's personal bodyguards, fanatically loyal to him like dogs, falls into a rage. They do not understand politics. They know one thing: the master was killed. And they begin to take revenge. Barbarians with huge swords burst into the galleries. They chop everyone who falls to hand. Senators who simply came to watch the games die under the blows of enraged giants. The palace turns into a slaughterhouse. Meanwhile, the killers go to finish the job. They know the cruel law of Rome. The seed of a tyrant cannot be left. As long as someone of his blood is alive, revenge is inevitable. Tribune Lupus goes to the empress's chambers, Caesonia, the woman Caligula loved for her depravity and cruelty. She does not run. She does not hide. Seeing the killers with bloodied swords, she understands everything. Legend has it she bared her neck and said, "Strike. I told him to be tougher." A blow of mercy ends her life. But the most terrible thing remains, something that makes even hardened veterans' hands tremble. In the nursery, a little girl is playing. Julia Drusilla. She is only 2 years old. She is an exact copy of her father. They say she already knew how to scratch the faces of children she played with, and Gaius proudly saw his breed in this. The tribune looks at the child. In his eyes there is no pity, only the cold logic of state necessity. If she grows up, she will become a banner for loyalists. She must disappear. We will not describe this moment. Suffice it to say, everything happens quickly and cruelly. One dull thud against the wall, and the crying stops forever. The dynasty is interrupted. The blood of the divine Julius, mixed with madness, is wiped off the face of the earth. It seems that freedom should come now. The tyrant is dead. The Republic can breathe deeply. The Senate gathers for an emergency meeting, delivers pompous speeches about the return of liberty, about the end of despotism. They want to erase Caligula's name from memory, destroy his statues, melt down his coins. But while senators practice eloquence, real history is being made in the dark corners of the looted palace. Soldiers wander through the rooms, grabbing everything that glitters: golden goblets, silks, jewelry. In one of the rooms, behind a heavy velvet curtain, they notice someone's feet. A soldier roughly yanks the fabric. Before them, shaking with horror, stands a man. It is Claudius, the uncle of the murdered emperor. That same Claudius whom the whole court laughed at. Lame, stuttering, considered mentally retarded. He is sure they will kill him now. He falls to his knees, covering his head with his hands, awaiting the blow. But the soldiers look at him not as a victim, they look at him as an opportunity. If there is no emperor, there will be no Praetorian Guard. There will be no generous gifts, no power. They do not need a republic. They need a master. And one of the soldiers, grinning, lifts the trembling old man from his knees and shouts, "Look, here is our new Caesar." Claudius, half dead from fear, is put on a litter and carried to the military camp. The Senate tries to protest, but seeing the bared swords of the guard, immediately falls silent. Freedom lasted less than a day. The Republic died without even managing to resurrect. The system built by Augustus and brought to absurdity by Caligula proved stronger than the death of one man. The monster was killed, but the mechanism creating monsters remained untouched. Only the mask on the face of power changed. Instead of a mad youth, a frightened intellectual old man sat on the throne. The story of Caligula ends not with a heroic finale, but with dark irony. His body was hastily burned in a shallow grave, covered with earth so carelessly that at night, as superstitious Romans whispered, his ghost wandered the gardens, frightening the guards. He wanted to become a god, but succeeded only in becoming a monster. He dreamed that his statues would be worshipped forever, but his name became a synonym for madness and debauchery for thousands of years to come. Look at this story as a whole. 4 years, 1,400 days of nightmare. Rome, which conquered Carthage and Greece, survived Hannibal and civil wars, almost perished from the boredom of one spoiled child. Absolute power, falling into the hands of one who did not know the word forbidden, turned the greatest empire in the world into decorations for a sadistic play. But before you close this page of history, ask yourself one question. Who is more to blame? A mad boy who was perhaps simply sick and broken by a cruel upbringing? Or those adults, smart, noble men, senators, generals, aristocrats, who indulged him for years? Those who kissed his sandals, who gave him their wives, who voted for a horse to become consul, just to save their lives and riches. Caligula is not an anomaly. He is a mirror in which every society that has allowed tyranny sees its true reflection. He showed that there is no bottom, that if you remove moral limiters and give a ruler carte blanche, civilization flies off a person instantly, leaving only a naked beast trembling with excitement. The emperor is dead. Long live the emperor. The curtain falls, but the blood on the stage has not yet dried. And in the shadows of the wings, the next act of this eternal drama is already being prepared, where power and madness dance their endless waltz.